Hello, I'm Lucian. I'm the location manager for Killing Eve, the part that was shot here in Romania. Nice to meet all of you. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hilton Clay Paris. I was one of the location managers on Messiah. I did the Dilley, Texas part, which we shot in New Mexico.
Hello, my name is Imre Légmån. I was a location manager in Treadstone, which partly shot in Hungary. Nice to meet you.
Hi, my name is Giacalone. I was the location supervisor in Jordan for the show Miss.
My name is Rosita Cannata, and I was the location manager on Treadstone for the French part.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Poole. I was the location manager on season 3 for Goliath. We shot everything in Southern California, and about 90% of it we shot outside of the zone, which led us to places like Bakersfield, Rosamond, Lancaster, St. Inez, and others. Thank you for having me.
Hi guys, my name is Jamie Parsons and I was the supervising location manager on Killing Eve 3.
Hi everybody, I'm Jordi Utset. I was the location manager for Killing Eve Season 3, the Spain unit here in Barcelona.
Hello, I'm Germán Traver. I was the supervision location manager for White Lines that we shot in mainland Spain and the Balearic Islands.
I'm Leon Seth. I was the location manager on the UK leg of White Lines.
Hello everybody, my name is Idris Ahmed. I was the supervising location manager on Giri Haji, Block 2, London. Thanks for having me.
My name is Wendell Hinkle. I was one of the location managers for Netflix's Messiah.
Salutations, esteemed. My name is Errol Reichow. I was the location scout on season 3 of Goliath, and thank you for having me.
3, 2, 1, slate. Welcome, everyone, to the LMGI 2020 Award Nominee Panel Discussion for Contemporary Television. Gosh, you know, that's kind of a long title. Why don't we just call it what it is? Cinematic Sympathy to the Assassin's Club. That's what I think a little bit. Looking around, I see a lot of guilty faces. With the exception, of course, one of our 6 amazing shows, Goliath, because their good guys are good guys and their bad guys are bad guys. Everybody else, you know what? I think it might just be a matter of which way your weapon is pointed. Well, today, our location compass is pointed at you, the world's best location professional talent, which begs the question, does the show make your locations look good, do you think? Or do your locations make the show? We're going to untangle that right now, starting with Messiah. Welcome, Messiah. Is that Christ's second coming or con man? You know, something, I don't think that is a question of if it will happen, but when. Let's talk to Marco Giacalone, no stranger to the LMGI, also a return nominee after a win for Super 8 in the same category in 2016. Marco, I consider you to be one of the world's foremost specialists in filming in the Middle East. Tell me, how are you and where are you calling from today?
Hi, doing fine. I'm currently in Berlin, working on the Matrix, and it's all good. Staying safe.
Any epic story about the possible coming of a Messiah, of course, has to include the Middle East. How did production zero in on Jordan for that? Was your search extensive?
We thought of 4 countries. We thought of Spain, but we never scouted it. We scouted then we went to Israel, and at the end, we ended up Jordan for the reason that even though it was difficult, but we needed Israel to be shot in a country that sort of accepted Israel, and Jordan was fine. It was easier to do that instead of trying to find the Arab part in Israel, because there is a separation between Palestine and Israel.
It sounds like you took some complicated story content and really had to draw on political and diplomatic sensitivities for the actual communities that all had a different perspective for what you were doing. So congratulations on that. I'm sure it was not easy. In fact, you managed to stage a terrorist attack and aftermath in an active mosque, and in a way that I don't think we've ever seen that before. I thought it was amazing. How did you get permission? How did you approach that? And was that part of the hesitancy in the region? I mean, beyond just the actual specific plot line, but onto the entire nature of the project.
So we went for mosques that sort of needed, help. The roof, the mats, the flooring, the bats for women, for men, shoe racks. And we found one. Strange enough, we had a location scout with us, and he was the son of the mayor of this neighborhood. He had a very good relationship with the imam, and he knew that for the community, for that neighborhood, to fix up a mosque would have been, very beneficial for all of them. So brought the designer, brought the director. I said, this is the one we could try, because I've filmed all over the Middle East and I've never been able to film in a mosque, maybe outside at a distance, but never inside. We basically split the mosque in half so that the people that attend 5 times a day to pray still could pray. We would stop, we were next door, we would stop for those 5 prayers that, they're not, it's not a Swiss quartz movement, they say 5 minutes, it could be 10. You can't offend. So we have to do that. But it was, it took a long time, about, I'd say 7 months of talking back and forth, and yeah, it took a while. But I'm here, so I
Did
guess
you
I
say
made it.
7 months of negotiations?
Yeah, for negotiations, back and forth, meetings. It's more than bureaucracy. It's a religious matter.
What was the most rewarding part of this particular assignment for you, Marco?
The funny thing that you said something that if we're happy, you're not happy if films show our locations. I believe that every location manager, once they see the film that they worked on, would love to have shown more than what we really worked on. And I think that's the name of the game. But the effort that you put into blocking the square for a week to build an arch, which is actually in Damascus, and have tanks and have soldiers, and it's quite intense, but you do it. They're really good. Without the Jordanians, and you can't do the film.
Marco, it shows on screen, and I would say of the Messiah project as a whole, that each one of your separate pieces is so grand in scale that it is like its own separate movie. And I think that's part of what got you here, all 3 of you, because it is that spectacular. So let's go across the globe now and find out about what it felt like putting it together in Tennessee, which brings us to Wendell Hinkle.
Hey,
Welcome,
Jill.
Wendell. How are
Thank
you, and where are you calling in from today?
Today I'm in Greenwood, Mississippi.
Being that this particular story, Messiah, as Marco is just describing to us, is drenched in a lot of religious controversy, how was production received in this particular region, Bible Belt? It might have had a real different vibe than what he was experiencing in Jordan, with the differences there. Tell us about it.
Well, first of all, Marco's a tough act to follow. I mean, you know, when you can have an explosion in a mosque, I don't know how you top that. But scouting in Tennessee, it wasn't hard, but a lot of questions were asked. We had a lot of people working with us, but questions were asked early on before people were willing to get involved. We were working on you know, in the community, there was local government, there were businesses, there was state government, but it was a question that the content was a big concern. And people just, like I said, we didn't really get any pushback on it, but it was a sell. And we had to sell it repeatedly and get people on board and keep them interested. And I think the story was strong enough that they were interested. So it worked for us. Yeah.
How do you stuff all of Washington, D.C. into your Tennessee film kit? Just explain that to us, please, because it was a lot.
Well, there was a lot. And actually, we were sort of the last piece of the puzzle. Marco was already on, Clay was already on, and there was a significant part of the story that was going to be set in the Washington, D.C. Hotel. And I think that there was a lot of online scouting going on from the part of the producer, but I sort of took a call out of the blue regarding the Hermitage Hotel, which is a historic hotel in Nashville. And, you know, wanting to know if I had ever worked there and was it possible. And fortunately, I actually have a very long relationship with that hotel and have filmed there many times. So it became, which was a recurrent thing in Tennessee, was cultivating relationships. So we had that relationship with the Hermitage, and what sort of was presented to us by the Netflix people were, if you can get us this, you're still going to have to get the rest of the puzzle. But that was sort of the deal breaker, was to make that happen. We had to get this 5-star hotel to basically allow us to take over several floors for a month. And I mean, that's going to be tricky anywhere. Nashville is kind of the it city for tourism, and especially at that particular moment in time, hotels were booked 4 or 5 months in advance. So we had to have meetings with them, get them to sign on and agree with that, and also book those rooms that far out and hold them. And you know, I have to say a lot of thanks came from the Tennessee Film Commission. But also, again, back to relationships. We were able, because of relationships we were able to film in the state capitol building, in the Supreme Court building, War Memorial Plaza, which actually doubled as courthouse exterior for Texas. But it was just finding these elements that we could sell as, you know, various parts up and down the Eastern Seaboard and then Washington, D.C. I think one of the biggest things we did was White House interiors were actually shot at the governor's mansion. And Governor Haslam and the First Lady, not only did they allow us to do it, but they were living there while we did it. They stayed upstairs, and we took over the downstairs of the mansion for, I think, 3 days and 2 nights, working with the security detail, but pretty much having, you know, the run of a good part of that. And, you know, there's something to be said for that. And usually we get, a lot of people think of Nashville and filming locations. It's about the Grand Ole Opry and Ryman Auditorium and country music related themes. So this was a chance to show we could do it and not have any of that involved in it. There's at no point in the story are we ever in Nashville, for that matter.
Thank you so much for being with us here today. And I'm going to move over to a little bit of a warmer region, and welcome to the Master of New Mexico, Mr. Hilton Clay Perez. Hello, good morning.
Hey,
and
good morning.
How are you, and where are you calling in from exactly?
Good morning. Calling in from Albuquerque, New Mexico, just a little north of there. So,
how do you find the space to, and you have to listen to this carefully and explain the question to us also. How do you find the space to match a town you created, to match a town that exists when you destroy the match by tornado, creating a new space for the matched existing town destroyed? Can you explain your process on that?
Sure. It's funny. I'm going to take a step back from that for a second. I had been in, my family's from South Texas. And so I had been down in South Texas probably a month before I got the call from Messiah. And I was scouting with a friend of mine, small Texas towns like Big Wells and Creosote Springs and Cotulla. And we went through Dilley, Texas, and I photographed it. And about a month later, I got a call asking to find Dilley, Texas in New Mexico. And I had not been in Dilley, Texas in 40 years. So I thought that was strange to begin with. And we picked the town of Mountain Air. It felt the most like Dilley, Texas. And so we established that as our town of Dilley. And it's a really wide street. So then what we decided to do is take, okay, the main features of that town, the post office, the grocery store, just some kind of landmark locations that stood out, and make sure that when we rebuilt the town, which was probably about 30 miles away on this guy's ranch, we laid asphalt, we made a main street, we made the destroyed buildings to match the real town. So and I think they probably, and then we built our actual practical church there, which we ended up burning at the end of the show. So, it was, the construction team did an amazing job. I think it was about 5 blocks that they built and destroyed, and brought in hundreds of 18-wheelers full of destroyed cars and buses, and yeah, they did an amazing job.
Kind of wondering, how long was that cleanup for you?
The cleanup I think the town took about 4 months to make, and then the cleanup probably took about 8 weeks. We also had major monsoons, and so we would continually, it turned into a mud pit, and we'd have these 18-wheeler suction trucks coming overnight and just sucking, the lakes off the set so we could shoot in the morning. And so it was a feat, but it was so great. It was so great to see it cut in with what Marco and Wendell did, which it was, because I was in conversation with Marco, but I didn't, and I was seeing some of the images from there, but I was just amazed by what those two pulled off where they were. So it was a nice fit.
I also was reminded of the grand scale of the caravan. And it had 3 different looks. So I thought you maybe went 25 miles. Was that all in one county, continuous? Or from the drone shots, it looks like, hey, we saw you traveling. It was very impressive.
It was a continuing travel. It was a 25-mile. We traveled 25 miles with 10 state troopers, and just we did it 3 times in one day, so back and forth, and it was about 100 cars, I think. The scary part was, I think it was background driving the cars, so that was a bit suspect. But and then the next day we just literally moved maybe 30 minutes, and we're in the trees. That's the great thing about New Mexico, is you can travel 30 minutes, and the only thing we don't have is water, ocean, but we have pines and desert, and so a lot of different looks.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. And it's so nice to see all of you. It's nice to meet you.
One thing that we're going to do, I think, because some people are actually filming, and again, we so appreciate you taking the time to be here on your busy schedule. Let's go ahead and move over to Romania, actually, a different part of the world. We're going to speak to our friends over at Killing Eve. I'm going to bring up Lucian Asan from Killing Eve. Good evening where you are. Why don't you tell us where you're calling in from today, and how are you?
Hi, I'm in Bucharest right now. We have shooting 2 streets away from here. Commercial this time.
Oh, a commercial. Okay.
Yes.
Lucian, let me ask you, the town in Poland where Eve's husband escapes to, was shot in a Romanian village that looked like it was frozen in time. How did you find it?
Well, Romania is filled with many stunning old villages dating to all the way to back to the medieval times. Killing Eve has an impressive track record when it comes to locations. So it was important for us not just to show the beauty of the landscapes or for our country, but also to deliver a good location that was strong visually and with historical significance. Actually, Viskri, the village that we shot in, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it's picturesque in his simplicity. It's isolated. It's actually authentic, and it looks like a Polish city, a Polish village. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my next questions. But let's move over to Eve's family home, because she's in Russia now, also located in a remote countryside. What were you asked to look for? Because the intimate look into this season, the personalities of each of our co-stars, their homes, I felt like were so much more a part of the story as we get more intimate with their characters.
We searched, at the beginning, we searched for two-story countryside, a countryside home, and the festival grounds where various outdoor activities would take place. We found this village. This is a remote village in Transylvania, up in the mountains. Strangely, it was that we have very good weather when we shot there, because usually at the end of October it's freezing cold and it's tons of snow. Actually, 2 days after we wrapped, it was 20 centimeters of snow falling. So in this village that is a logging village, we found different locations that matched Lawrence. Lawrence was the production designer. Lawrence's idea of Russian countryside.
Lucian, thank you so much for being here. All right, moving forward, I am very excited to speak with Jamie Parsons, supervising location manager in the UK for Killing Eve. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. And like I was saying before, this year we're seeing so much more different intimate side of the characters reflected by the homes that they live in. I felt like it was more of a personal connection to the actual locations, because each of these distinct characters, and they're going off of even the co-stars as well, they have such distinct and extreme personalities. It's quite apparent in everything, including even wardrobe. So how does that affect what you look for as you're scouting and presenting options for their entire personality?
Sure. Yeah. Hello, everybody. It's great to see you all. Great to meet you. Yeah, I mean, we're really lucky on Killing Eve that we've got characters who are quite eccentric and quite crazy, assassins or MI5 agents. And they're all, especially in season 3, they're all in different places in their lives. They were struggling to keep their relationships going, or they were trying to discover the truth about their families in the case of Villanelle. So there's a lot of wacky stuff we can go with. There's we like to keep things interesting and go with crazy new locations. We often brainstorm, it might have an interior pub location written in the script, but we might go with something completely different and end up in the roof of the Royal Albert Hall. So with each of the characters, yeah, we have quite a free rein to put different options forward and just work it out with our design team and producers, obviously.
I see. And Eve's London manages to avoid a lot of the cliches that normally are associated with that capital city. Like for instance, in season 3, Eve's world is now centered in London's Korean neighborhood. Is that often filmed, or was that something new for you guys to like jump into?
Yeah, it's yeah, a really big Korean community in Southwest London that I've actually shot in before. And it's fantastic. Yeah, we went there. It's got a huge number of Korean restaurants, amazing restaurants, one of which we used for the opening episode with Eve working not undercover, but she's kind of given up on the assassin hunting and is working in a restaurant for a bit of a change of scenery. So we were down there for the first week of the shoot, and it was really fantastic. It was yeah, really well received, and it was a great way for us to start the shoot.
Yeah, I loved that twist in the story, by the way, like life after Villanelle. Does it exist? It's hard to say, but we'll keep going. We'll find out, and I look forward to what happens next, of course. I'm going to move over to Spain, but before we do, I need to just ask, where was that amazing room of weapons? You know, when she comes in to meet her new boss and they discuss, well, if someone was to be killed, it should involve that little chair. You know the room I'm talking about. Where was that?
I do, yeah, that's one of the, that's the Armourers Hall in central London, which is, I believe, where they used to make a lot of weapons and armory. And it's an institution that is right in the city, right in central London, which we used on the same night as we did some of the Tower Bridge closing scenes that you might have seen at the end of the series. So yeah, it's great for Killing Eve's very much a London show, and we had an amazing time with the guys in Spain and Romania. But to be in central London for a lot of it is a real treat. And as you mentioned, we try not to make it too cliched. We don't want it to look obvious, but we do shoot a lot in central London, which is great fun.
No, you always come up with great surprises, which leads me into, hello, Jordi Utset from Spain. You know, Villanelle's Barcelona apartment, excuse me, was stunning. So how extensive was that scout is what I'm gonna ask. And how many places did you show before that, before everybody went, oh, this is it? Because it's just such an incredible moment. And I think, you know, the actress herself describes it best, Jodie Comer, when she walks in and she's overwhelmed with the beauty that she's negotiated for herself on her terms. So she has this, the hills are alive moment and goes, woo! And I just wondered, it was so perfect, such a great moment. Was that scripted, or did you just come up with it?
Well, I have to be honest. I was on another show when the first scout when Lawrence Dorman, I think, which is the production designer of part of this season, if I'm not wrong, Jamie, came to Barcelona. I was on another show by the same production service company, and I was asked to attend them, but I couldn't. So I think it was in the first package of locations that was sent to them. And I think it was nearly one of the first apartments that they saw, and it was automatically chosen. I mean, it wasn't really a fight to have this apartment. I mean, it was directly chosen.
So all the stars aligned for you on that location moment, and unfortunately, I'm here to tell you, it will probably not happen again in your career. Okay.
Probably not. Probably not. I have to say that I've shot before. I had shot before in that apartment, and it's a quite difficult one. Of course, it's like a museum. It's a modernist apartment, really old, really well cared, and the owner is quite aggressive in the terms of what you can or cannot do, or protect everything. So it was a bit of I don't know how to say it. It was the guy was all the time calling me if I was not there. It was like the other department had to call me all the time. Are we allowed to do this, to do that? Well, finally it ended quite good, I think.
And we're talking about, of course, the scene on the gondola above the city where she's stomping up and down. And oh, I just love Kim, Kim Bodita, that actor who's like holding on for dear life. It's terrifying to watch, Jordi. Was it terrifying to film? Was the crew freaked out? Was it difficult to get permission for that?
The people in charge of the gondola, the company in charge of the gondola, allowed us to do a bit of it. And I think we kind of exaggerated by camera, of course. The curious thing about that shooting day was that the night before, it was a huge storm in Barcelona, huge storm, windy. And when it's windy, of course, the gondola doesn't work. So we were just like, are we gonna shot or we have to cancel this? But finally, in the morning, everything was cleared up. The wind stopped and it was blue sky, Barcelona blue sky. So the DOP was really, really happy because we had like, the atmosphere was very clean. You could see the whole city. So it finally worked really good too, yeah.
It absolutely did. And I think it's one of the favorite moments, like I said. We're real excited to find out what you guys bring to us next season. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks to you.
And we're going to move over right now to somewhere close, I think, to Jordi on another area of Spain, talking to White Lines, which was an amazing project. The juxtaposition, so Germán, Traver, hello, how are you and where are you calling in from today, sir?
Hello, very nice to be here with you. Thank you very much for all this show and to be part of this nomination panel. So we are very glad.
And we're thrilled to have you here. What a packed show, nonstop stuff going on. The amount of locations in all your shows is really stunning. The story takes place in Ibiza in Spain. Was there ever an alternative? Why Ibiza? Germán, tell us.
Yeah, well, it was written from the beginning, the script in Ibiza. Ibiza is a kind of an international hub for the electronic music. It's a very worldwide kind of place. So actually, the stories have some relation with electronic music because some characters from Manchester goes down to Ibiza to find new adventures in their lives. So actually, the first also meeting what we have with the production and the creative side of it, which is Alex Pina, which is the creator also from Money Heist, which is a very well-known Netflix series, was in Ibiza to get the sense of the island. We spent around 2 days there. We traveled around, and all the script wasn't not finished. It wasn't the developing a script, but they want to have like 2 days there with all of us, yes, to get the mood of the island. So Ibiza was from the very beginning.
Well, I think the way that you depicted Ibiza here is sort of the epitome of dreams turning into nightmares. You know, not just the flashbacks, but the current day, and taking us all around the island, everywhere, water, fields, just the forest. It really showed it all in a way that was a nice surprise. An example of the dreams turning to nightmare while you're showing it, that, like I said, the opposites attract, with bad guy bodies in tow in this boat. How did you stage that entire procession of the Madonna through Portocolum? Talk about that.
Well, I have to say first that Ibiza, all the script is for Ibiza and the series is Ibiza, but for production reasons, we shot all the parts, mostly all the parts that was showing Ibiza in Mallorca, which is another island, the Balearic Islands, which is bigger and has is more production friendly, not friendly, but also is a hub of production. So it was better for the production to accommodate all the crew and to do the shoot. Actually, to be based in Mallorca instead of Ibiza, which is a tiny island. Sometimes it's difficult to shoot, especially in the summer season because it's very crowded. So actually, this Portocolum is in Mallorca, and we scout in Mallorca because in Ibiza, architecture used to be white. So in Mallorca, it's a very similar island, but the architecture is not all the time white because we have another textures in the houses. And this in Portocolum is white, so it was matching the story. And we were there for a month preparing all this kind of show that we had there with this parade from the little kind of port fishing village. It starts off there and then ends up in the big square with the churches, and which the fishing village is another city, and we matched it all together. And it worked quite well. And we have a lot of support from the local authority and from the local police, and that was shot in summer 2019, and it was a very crowded place, and everything went quite well.
Germán, with so many spectacular sprawling estates, it really sets kind of White Lines apart from some of the other stories. From the mega birthday party burn, which kind of feels like Burning Man, and this fortress that was built in 1698, to the reigning dreadlord villas, what strategies do you inherit to gain access to one of these one-of-a-kind properties, filming all these rage parties of hedonism with the huge multitudes you have during filming? How do you do that?
We know them, and we have a close relation with kind of wealthy families and the owners of these, amazing properties, because that property with the party happens. It's really stunning. It was built in the 16th century, and it's a part of a peninsula in the island. So it's really great place, and they just live all because of the show. I think that they know us, and it's sometimes a question to build up a good relation.
And that's why you're here today. Thank you so much. Let's go talk to Leon Seth, also for White Lines, a completely different portion of the show. Good morning, Leon. How are you? Where are you calling in from?
Oh, hi, Joel. Hi, everyone. Yes, it's not morning here. It is evening, and it's a rainy Yorkshire evening. So, yeah, there's a reason why this part of the world is so green.
I love that. Green and gray, I'm going to bring up, because this is a story about the kids from Manchester, England, who seek adventure in paradise. So did you actually film in Manchester? Did you piece it all together? There's so much grit and texture in those scenes. Talk us through it, please.
Well, I mean, I did offer to go to Ibiza as research in order to get the full, but obviously I didn't get to go and see that end of the spectrum. Yeah, no, the bit I did was all of the backstory, that kind of looking at the characters and their humble beginnings, and that kind of visual counterpoint of where they started to where Germán's kind of beautiful landscapes and beaches. So yes, we were very much kind of gritty northern mill towns and streets, and those 2 up 2 down red brick terraces with large mills, textile mills looming over them. So yes.
Was that a scouting intent in your color palette as like a clashing variance to the sunny coastlands of Spain? Or did the natural weather patterns just align with the mood conveyed?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, the weather comes with the territory, doesn't it, really, with the landscape? But yeah, no, we very much wanted to see that distinct difference of Alex and Zoe. I mean, those mills were kind of real symbols of empire, and the folks who lived in those houses were, the working class workers of those. So these are the kids that have grown up in the shadow of, their fathers and their grandfathers would have worked in those places. So you know that they're coming from quite humble beginnings, but as from being from the north myself, there's kind of a very outward facing aspiration. So we needed to see kind of how he got into music and DJing, and what propelled them to Ibiza, really. So yeah, it was well, it was the 90s Manchester scene, wasn't it, really? So I mean, which was kind of legendary at the time. So we kind of needed to understand the character.
So thank you for describing that. Let me ask you, what was the most challenging part of the process for you on your side of the pond there?
I think probably, I mean, all of us have had those experiences where you plan something months in advance and then you get curveballs that you just don't expect. So we chose, obviously Manchester is changing so fast, and so lots of these places are developing and gentrifying. So you have to go further afield to find elements of 90s Manchester. So we were kind of looking at the surrounding towns. So we found this place that had this mill that had been built in 1895. So it had been there a while, and we planned it. It'd been derelict for the best part of 20-30 years, but a week before the crew arrived from Spain to film, they started demolishing it. So you're then kind of like, we're always filming places in transition, aren't we, really? So it was like literally trying to speak to the demolition contractors. This building that has stood for over a century is now being demolished just to that side of the frame. So yeah, it was, it's now completely changed from when we filmed.
For the mill that's gone, I have to say it's at least preserved in time from all your hard work for the rest of us. So thank you for that. Treadstone now, praised for its frenetic action sequences and exotic locales. And Imre, I am so excited to finally meet you. I'm filming season 2 right now, during our call, as a matter of fact. So thank you for being with us. Another former LMGI nominee with the highly acclaimed Mudbound in 2017. So this is not your first party.
Hello from Hungary, Budapest.
Let's talk about the accomplishments of this amazing show that was absolutely non-stop action. I've talked with your executive producer, Ben Smith, who is very committed to using actual locations as scripted. And the scope is truly outstanding, with filming in Amsterdam, Paris, London, Greece, India, Africa, Taiwan, South Korea, Ghana, Colombia, and Hungary. Sounds like a travelogue, sounds like a location manager's dream or a nightmare. When you got the call for this, Imre, did you have any idea what a huge undertaking it would be?
We were lucky because first we get only the script of the pilot. So in the pilot, we have 5 or 6 countries altogether. It was very interesting, very exciting, and we saw it will be a challenging show. But at the end, we had more than 250 sets or something like this. So just the logistics was very complicated. And, there are easier locations for us in Hungary because it's easy to find East Germany or the rural Russia, because we have a same past. So we have socialist buildings, everything else. When we had to find something for Seoul, let's say, that's more difficult, or Washington, the United States, that's the scale and the type of the buildings are so different. So we had to approach in a creative way the whole thing to achieve what we want to see.
Well, I think that we did see more of Hungary than we ever have before. Tell us about your challenge to find the locations there that would match scenes shot elsewhere in Paris, Seoul, or the Spitsbergen in Norway, for example.
I think we were lucky because the architecture in Hungary, it's not the same, but similar, like in Paris. And the scene was a car chase, an action sequence. So we blocked a few streets and we had a few loops. And I think the car flip was a little bit tricky because we have to emptying everything and secure the whole area. And for Seoul, we had to find only a VIP room for the club, which is okay because it was an interior location. So we find it. We had a fight there, of course, again, and the same is with Spitsbergen. So we had to tell that we can find anything in Hungary which is similar than that one. So we have a build set for that one and a build set and an office. That's it. But I think it's always very challenging to find something which is absolutely not in this country. I like it.
Imre, you mentioned that iconic car chase, Jason Bourne style, which, as you said, this story is kind of the prequel to that. So the action is constant, nonstop. Now, was that car chase, is that the one that comes from the Versailles after that, going to the embassy, and that sort of connects you and Rosita, Paris, Budapest? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
yeah, they started
really
from Versailles, yeah, and
absolute
at the end
James
was in
Bond
Budapest.
stuff, you guys, all the way. How did it feel to show off your own home country? I mean, scouting for Hungary circa 1970s, had it changed much, or maybe not at all?
Absolutely, it's like a different country or a different city. Budapest changed a lot after the, let's say, the revolution. Everything has changed, and we have limitations. You can see the film, we see the parliament building, the part of the castle, a few smaller streets and interiors, because we have new buildings everywhere. So it's not easy to show our country.
But you left it all on screen. And I know that that hospital stuff, that's so gritty, could be any scary story, but the way that you guys put it together just sets the stage for the entire ride. So congratulations doing it right, because it's never a dull moment. I appreciate it very much. And so that will bring us over to the front of that chase, over to Rosita, Cannata, and you are also no stranger to the LMGI. I know I've read some things about you. You're pretty famous. Good morning. Tell us where you're calling from today.
Good evening from Paris. Hello, everybody. Hello, Imre. It was a pleasure to work on this project, real pleasure. And I'm very happy to be here this evening.
Well, tell us about your experience at the Palace of Versailles, because that's always a one of a kind. We've seen it before, but not like this. You guys were all over the place. How are you able to get permission to film there?
I must say that at Versailles, there are more and more open to welcome shooting and production. After reading the script and after seeing if nothing goes against the image of these historical monuments, of course, a real exchange starts between the production and them. And I must say that there is a person, and the key person for Versailles, the name of this person is Jan, and she's in charge of all the movies, all the shootings there. And it's easy, I mean, it's a true pleasure, but it helps a lot to work with such open mind and kind person, especially when it comes to such important locations. So the most important thing is to have a very precise and clear request and to organize a few recce on set. This is very important, and discuss about the shooting and all the technical installation which will take place, and especially to respect all the rules, of course. In this location, nothing has to be left to last minute. When all the details are finalized, discussed, fixed between the location manager and Versailles head of department, in this case Jen, the deal is done. So the final test is the shooting day itself. And I needed to make sure that all the rules are respected and this allows to further build trust, which will help for future projects.
Yes, and thank you for that, because I think that it kind of opens up the door, and maybe not even for all of us. I mean, you might just be the first phone call there, but like you said, as long as you have a clear and concise list of your exact requests and scheduled times, which, as we all know, is pretty par for the course in any production, right? And we should all just be able to sponsor in there. So thank you for that, Rosita. What did you have to go through to get into the Hall of Mirrors?
Wow, to get inside the Hall of Mirror is mandatory to organize more than one wiki. It's very important to describe everything, the scene, how the director wants to film it, and a precise description of the gear and technical request. If we need, for example, to control the lights of the luminaries, we have to prevent, we have to tell everything. We cannot just ask at the very last minute that we want to put up the light or on, And special authorization is mandatory to remove any accessories, even the smallest. We cannot decide to move a chair or a bench without discussing before, because there is a special department who will deliver the authorization. As always, the most important thing is to be organized and respect the rules. So the most difficult part is to anticipate everything and constantly be on top of it. This, I think, is the most difficult part. Then it's easy.
And of course, all that making you the most popular, well-liked person on set, right? Being the rule maker and such. Well, thank you so much again for setting the standard. We appreciate you being here, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to do next. Right now, we're going to bring it on back home, kind of over to Southern California. Let's talk to Goliath from Amazon Prime. Hi, guys. Touted as the modern day Chinatown, California's water wars are a deadly true tale. And before I get into it, location managers, guys, yeah, you got to see each other's shows. List of this cast: Billy Bob Thornton, Dennis Quaid, Amy Brennan, William Hurt, Griffin Dune, Bo Bridges, Graham Greene, Alana Douglas, Paul Williams, Mark Duplass, and Sherilyn Fenn. How can you go wrong? You got such a head start with that. Let me say hello and good afternoon by now to Mr. Scott Poole. How are you? Location manager to season 3. Looking forward to season 4 that you're filming now. Where are you calling in from today, Scott?
So I'm in the boring old 30-mile zone here in California. No Paris, no Budapest, just good old Los Angeles, the meat and potatoes of the film industry.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I like that description. So, but interestingly enough, your show, which is unusual, went from Santa Barbara to LA to Kern, all over different counties, kind of breaking the scouting boundaries of a typical Hollywood formula. I'm wondering, is that more trouble than it's worth, or is there a big payout on the screen? And what is that payout? I know from experience that getting a company of 200 people to move around to a different county in Southern California every 2 days is not easy. So tell us about that.
Yeah, well, obviously the approach in the beginning was to allow the writers to write their story, the story because of what it was based on. That really meant telling the story set in the Central Valley of California. When we started our scouting, obviously we wanted to stay inside the studio zone the same way any television show that shoots in Southern California That's how they budget it. That's how they plan it. That's what their expectations are. So when we started showing them options that were inside the zone, we also threw in things that were outside the zone that we felt like really would tell the story. And one of the ways that I helped sell it to taking the crew outside the zone as much as we did, we all know what that means from a financial point of view, as well as a scheduling point of view. One of my selling points was the kind of locations that we would have access to for the viewer would be so much different than what is shot inside the zone. And by the way, I've done shows where I've shot inside the zone every single episode, and we were supposed to be in a different country every single episode. So it's certainly possible, but there are certain limitations, especially for what we were trying to portray, meaning almond orchards, wine vineyards, open desert landscape. There's just certain things that if you're really trying to keep yourself inside the LA zone, you're either going to extremely limit what those options are, or you're going to be telling a different story. And one of the ways that I helped convince them to move outside the zone as much as they did is I said, you're going to create something that the viewers are going to be as new to what they're being taken through, the environment that they're going to be taking and following the story through, as Billy, our main character, will be. So it really gave a way to let the viewers experience the same thing that our main character was experiencing.
Yes, absolutely. And it came across. And speaking of being a storyteller, do you feel as a filmmaker that revealing the true nature of this struggle, which we in California know is a very real struggle and current for land and water rights, was the idea of filming and telling that story embraced by the people who live it by filming it in those areas, or was there any pushback? I might go a little further to ask, did they know? Did they care? Because nowadays, you know that story content is a huge secret. We all have our NDAs. Were you able to reveal any depth of your story to the contacts you're even working with?
You know, it is a delicate balance between disclosing enough information so that you don't end up with a product that's been shot on someone's property that they're so unhappy that they want to come after you or the company or the studio afterwards. So there is a very fine line between disclosing that information, and what I really do to help work through that is I leave it up to the individuals that we're proposing to film on their property. I leave it up to them about how much information do you need to feel comfortable about what we're planning on doing. Some people don't really care. They care about how much money you're offering. They care about if they're going to be insured against any possible loss. You have other people that get so involved in what they want to know out of the content that it makes it impossible to disclose enough. And even if you do, they may not like that content and may not support your shoot. But I feel like a full disclosure is needed if a full disclosure is requested. And sometimes, by the way, the company doesn't want to do that. I've had that before. I've had locations that the company has decided, hey, you know what? They want a full disclosure. We're not willing to do it. We're gonna go with a different location. So I think it's about being honest to both sides and offering what is requested of the other side, knowing that it may cause you to have to find a backup location.
So true, and also a part of every job.
Well, and I have to say, you know, as far as your question about the water rights, I mean, obviously living in Southern California, we know the history of what has happened over the last 150 years in Southern California with taking water from other places. So when you wonder if the people that we had to contact for permission to film our content on their property, I will tell you that there were some people that said, hey, we're not interested in supporting this. And there were others that said, hey, that's amazing that you guys are taking such a realistic approach to storytelling and really trying to tell the story as even keeled as possible, but also trying to bring onto the screen what is really happening. I mean, and by the way, it's not just Southern California. It's anywhere on this planet that is dealing with fresh water, dealing with water rights. You know, there are guys up in this valley that we dealt with, that we filmed on their property, or that we dealt with that we ended up deciding not to, that these guys are all in lawsuits with each other. It's unbelievable what's going on up in the Central Valley. I mean, we look down here and we turn on the tap and we look at our water bill and we hear if we can water our lawn 3 days a week or all 7 days a week. And to us, that's the water struggle. These guys are up here that have owned properties for 500 years and properties that have been in their family, that because of water rights, they may go out of business because the water table has dropped, or they've lost a lawsuit against somebody that's built next to them that's now using their underground water. It is an unbelievably complicated thing that's happening up there. And it is an absolute water rights war going on in the Central Valley.
Well, it's definitely an important story that needed to be told. And now we know they're drinking our milkshake. Just saying.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
It's a thing. These locations are so different than the season 1 and season 2, in that we're kind of reflecting Billy McBride out of his normal day scenarios. He's kind of a fish out of water, and there's a lot of surreal locations. Compare that with Billy, far from his, Venice Beach stomping grounds. We're so used to seeing him at Say J. I mean, where do you see this going? Is this something that you think is such a success in the storytelling of the show, it'll continue? Let's go with that.
Well, I will tell you that one of the goals of telling the overall season the way that they did for season 3 was to take the success that they had built up over the first 2 seasons, but also make it fresh and new. Give the audience a fresh look, but still have Billy as the core of why you're watching the show. And I will tell you, now that we're in the middle of producing season 4, it will be new and exciting the same way it was coming off of season 2 into 3, as it will be from coming 3 into 4. So of course I can't disclose any of that right now, but you'll if you enjoyed season 3, you will certainly enjoy season 4.
Well, that is just exactly what we want to hear. And I am going to move over and talk to one of your best secret weapons on season number 3. Welcome, Errol Reichow of Goliath. Thank you for waiting and being patient, Errol. I know you've got some nuggets hidden to share with us. What creative knowledge is different as needed when scouting these agricultural specialty land masses than opposed to like the same old, ordinary urban industries?
Well, one of the nice things about scouting the agricultural areas, and as Scott was saying, the transition from taking the show from a Venice Beach more closed sets to a more broad scope, and the criteria had a lot of contradiction to it also. It had a barren crop field next to a bountiful field, again pushing those water rights issues. The challenge you have with the landscape is it's a moving target. These crops are ever evolving, they're in cycles, and it is a constant cycle. So do these crops and land masses match the script in what they want to write? And a lot of times they do, and a lot of times they don't. Many of the hurdles that you run into is these farmers lease the land. and it's hard to find ownership of it. You had mentioned in the past about scouting the urban industries. Those are in more consolidated areas, whereas in the Central Valley, it is sprawling. There's certain climate regions for certain crops, and you have to scour many different areas, and also for this landscape. And you find yourself perhaps on a hill with binoculars, looking over to see if you can visually see from afar, get a much wider scope. And talking to people, the interaction and involving yourself in that particular region or area.
I like that answer. Thank you for that. And as the secret weapon for Scott, Errol, you searched for the casino, the vineyards, the orchards, around the aqueduct, and so much more. Were there any surprises to this assignment being so far out of the zone? Such as, did you have an aha moment? Did you just stumble across the Ark of the Covenant, so to speak?
Well, stumbling across the Ark of the Covenant, that would take about 100 or 1,000 years to do. So many people have tried, but it was a very diverse criteria, and a lot of people relish on that because you won't get bored. There's always something else, another gear to switch to, and in that aspect, it's kind of refreshing, one, to be out of the zone. You meet a very different class of people or style of people, especially coming from a cosmopolitan area going into an agricultural or country area. But one should always try to hit the bullseye on what they want in the script. Sometimes you don't. There's a lot of layers of complexity as just not the definitive location, but there's also the reverse. It's a 360-degree view is what we're looking for. So I try as best I can with imagination, maybe a lot of wine, to see what could turn into what is possible, and provide a canvas to a very, very competent art department and support group in the production team. So hopefully I've traveled along all those paths, the streets, the highways, the avenues, and I've collected enough data where I can walk down the Appian Way, back home, back to the production office. And it might not be a aha, but maybe it's a voila, here it is.
And it doesn't hurt to make friends at some of the vineyards out in the Santa Barbara counties for anybody, I would think. Definitely. That's a nice little niche. Other than that, what made working on Goliath for you different than the usual assignments you take?
Well, I come from the commercial universe now, and a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was from the feature and television world. And in Goliath, there's time you could maybe say, you could digest the script. You have time to sit down and really get into the meat and potatoes, as Scott was saying, of it. As in commercials, it's grab the fast food and eat it while you're on the run. So it also gives you time to nurture communication, lines of communication and relationships with people. That is a major factor in trying to turn around these locations. As all my predecessors were talking, there is a gentle progression on gaining confidence and reassurance. And the show is very well acclaimed. A lot of people know it. It does open doors, as with many others. If you come in with an honest approach, look people in the eyes, and are sincere, they will open up to you. And that's Goliath did provide me that, and made my job a lot easier.
And also your work makes the show better. I love what you had to say there. I think that's true for all of us. It presents a great example for what starts here in Southern California and what we believe travels around the world and back. So thank you very much for saying that. For everyone, as the Location Manager Guild International is absolutely celebrating excellence on location and nothing less. I really appreciate that. Let's go now. We're coming to something very exciting. I just learned how to pronounce it correctly, so I'm thrilled about that. Giri Haji, welcome to the table. Hello, Idris. Thank you. We have saved the best for last. So excited because you know what? This show, I am telling you, Idris, this show in some cases had some of our biggest surprises to us as a committee in finding it, especially in the creative style of storytelling, which used everything, which is totally unusual. So Idris, Ahmed, welcome to the table. Tell us where you're at, how you are today, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all well. We're live in London, so that's where we are.
Thank you again for being here. A super intense roller coaster ride from the ripples of classic culture.
Can I just say, I just want to interrupt. I've seen everybody's shows and they're all brilliant. So my hat's off to everybody here.
You're right. It's great just being here. I mean, not to make it sound like a cliche, and I want to say this, okay? There's these spots that you have filled, but there are people who are not here today that are excellent in their craft and they deserve to be. It's no less what you've done, but the fact that you are here, you can be congratulated because it was a tough round. It always is, but each one of these shows presents something different in our culture, in our world, in our location industry, and they are no less exciting from one to the next. So please, indeed, see them all. You will not be sorry. Thank you, Idris, for saying that, bringing that up. Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about the director's anti-cliche policy as the guiding principle in scouting, like new shades of London and Japan and how it affects the palette. Was it difficult to double some of these Tokyo locations in London?
Yeah, I would say that some of them were easy and some of them were really, really hard. I mean, whenever you get a director that comes on board and he comes and he says, I want to see London in a particular way, nobody wants cliche. It wasn't a Tower Bridge or a Buckingham Palace kind of show. It was very much kind of, let's see London in a different point of view. You know, these guys that came over from Japan didn't come over as tourists. You know, he came over here on a mission to find his brother, bring him back to Tokyo. So he wasn't here on holiday at all. So that was the kind of vibe that we got from the kind of like scene and the way that the tone was set.
And something completely different from that part of the story, what were the aesthetics of shooting all the beach town scenes? It was like such a huge break from the city Soho locations. How did that mirror the character's journey? Because we have this group of not really misfits, but the fact that they're all bunched together, it's amazing that the characters all fit and find their world, and then they really interconnect at the beach. Talk about that.
Yeah, they do. Well, the whole story and the premise was all about kind of like different parts of London, from the police's side, from Rodney's side, which was kind of like downtown Soho. And you had all these characters that came about, the underground world, the clubs and all that kind of stuff. So the journey to the seaside was kind of like a relief for all of them, but also there was a lot of sadness in it because they were going there to kind of remember their father. So it was a kind of like, let's pause the story here and let's go and remember this great man who was in Japan, and we see him. And then both of the brothers that weren't there for, the granddaughter wasn't there for, but, you know, we see this great man passing away, and then the elements of the beach all coming in. It was kind of like a distraction for them.
This production and what you were talking about at the beach also endured the storm Gareth, which was like this cocktail of wind and rain that conjured up to 20-foot waves right on the Sussex coast while filming those beach locations. How did that affect your production?
Well, you know, I'm sure we've all been on bad weather days. We kind of knew it was coming, So we just kind of planned around it as much as possible that we could do. And we got some really great effects from the weather. You know, it really helped us in kind of the beach scenes where they were walking along Camber Sands. You know, you couldn't recreate that, you know, even with all the production values. So in a way, the weather at the beginning kind of like was bad, and then it got worse, and then we had to kind of move the show and find some very, very quick kind of weather cover because the wind was just coming in from all angles and the waves were just coming in. But it was challenging, but we did it, you know, and we did it well, and it looked great in the end.
It did. And like I said, this was a huge surprise for us to find this. One thing I love the creators, the writers, and the directors do is they use absolutely everything in the medium. I mean, from including the graphics to the surprise animation to even when actors are talking. And I love it when the brothers are finally together, when exits the car, they look back, and the words he even says, all of a sudden, it's on the street, it's painted on the street as directionals instead of one way or turn right, it says, "You owe me." And I just love the way that they do that in the storytelling. If you had one word to describe that entire production, what would it be for you? I know my word. What's yours?
One word would be absolutely, it was marvelous. Marvelous, I'd say.
Well, I will let you know as a favorite audience for the project, I would say intense. This whole thing, watching it was intense. So did you have any fun moments, actually? There's a little bit of a strange, the tiniest comedic thread that runs through the writing because it's so intimate and diverse with these, like I said, you know, 4 characters coming together that anything could happen. And they projected just this line of comedy that is so subtle. Did you have any fun yourself in doing it? Because it seemed like an emotional roller coaster ride the rest of the time.
We had loads of fun, especially there was a lot of dark nights, a lot of wet, windy nights. You know, there was a lot of street scenes where you'd go out there and you'd see people, and you know, even just speaking to the location owners where, you know, you'd go to a hotel and you'd say, "I want to shoot in your hotel and I just want to blow someone's brains out," you know, just watch in their face and just see whether, and you can kind of know whether it's going to happen or not, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there were great times and great moments, and it was good fun. It was a good shoot, and a happy shoot, I'd say.
Well, I can tell that one of your skill sets is certainly being that 30-second sell like this. You sold me, and I hope everybody else gets a chance to view it. Thank you so much for being here. And I do want to say thank you to all of our nominees for being here. And to find out this year's winner, don't forget to get your tickets at the website locationmanagers.org for the LMGI 2020 Awards Show being shown October 24th at 2 p.m. And remember, whether you're streaming, skimming, binging, or surfing, television, it isn't going anywhere. So sit back, relax, and check out today's something that we took all year to shoot just for you. This is Jill Nauman with the LMGI reminding you, be safe out there, guys, and happy scouting.